minutes to say whether it's on the phone.
Because I thought I was rubbing off.
But I was reading somewhere.
They both got, their promotions. So it's, I wear off on them and then
They're like,
I up in the organization.
they're like, is there any other job I can do with this? That's one of the things.
In the end, I want to see probably from
Della loves it.
so that if you
What's
have
that? Yes.
theater,
Della.
comes with your phone and vice versa.
Never mind, I'll tell you what she told me the other day.
Listen to that.
And she used to sit there, so.
Here's the time. I hereby call the City of Westminster regular council meeting on Monday, May 6, 2019 to order. At this time, we'll take a silent moment of personal reflection. As a reminder, all members of council are obligated to declare a conflict of interest or a pecuniary interest as per section 133 of the Westminster Charter regarding any item on this agenda. At this time, I will ask if there's any additions or deletions to the agenda. Not seeing any, I'll move on to item number 3. I'll look for direction from council regarding the approval of this agenda. Councilman Rowe.
That the agenda dated May 6, 2019 be approved.
Seconder? Council Badchuk. Any further discussion? Not seeing any, I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving on to agenda item number 4, approval of minutes of the previous meeting. I'll look for direction from council. Councilman Rowe.
That the regular council minutes dated April 30, 2019 be approved.
Seconder? Council Fagan. Any further questions or comments? Not seeing any, I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Is there any business arising from the minutes? Not noting any, I'll move on to item number 6. To the city manager, 6.1 bylaws.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and Council. To present 6.1.1 Bylaw 6, 2019 mill rate and taxable assessment bylaw. I'll turn it over to City Clerk Doug Bradley.
Thank you, Your Worship. The subject matter before you now is the 2019 property tax mill rate and taxable assessment bylaw, and the recommendation is the council grant bylaw number 062019, the property tax mill rate and taxable assessment bylaw, its second and third readings. The Assessment and Taxation Department has calculated the final 2019 mill rates based on the new assessment roll and revisions provided by the assessor. Council approval of the bylaw is required in order to begin the levy process to ensure the 2019 tax notices are delivered to property owners in a timely manner. Council is required to annually pass the property tax bylaw under section 302 and 319 of the Westminster Charter to set mill rates. These rates are calculated based on required revenues determined during the budget process, the requisition from school divisions, and the new assessment roll received from the city assessor. The total taxable assessment was reduced by an additional $5 million since the first reading due to assessment revisions. As a result, the assessment complete period, which ended April 23, 2019, the total taxable assessment for 2019 tax year is $4.437 billion, which is down from the $4.5 billion in 2018, or a 1.4% overall decrease. In 2019, with the assessment and proposed mill rate changes, the tax levy will collect an estimated $36 million for municipal purposes as approved in the 2019 budget. The original mill rates proposed in the first reading of the 2019 mill rate taxable assessment bylaw are presented on the right side of the chart. These were calculated prior to assessments bylaw and are presented, these were calculated prior to having all the assessment revisions back from the assessor in order to provide council and public with an approximation of where the mill rate will be set. These were also based on the original budget number passed by council resolution in December. The final mill rates are calculated on the left side of the chart. These final mill rates account for all assessment revisions to date to ensure that the budget requirements are met as outlined in the budget 2019 as revised. The only rates that changed were the municipal levy mill rates. The education and seamless rates remain the same. The total residential mill rate would increase by 1.82% since last year. The total non-residential mill rate would increase by 3.29% since last year. The tax rate increase plus the change in the assessment value will result in the total change in taxes. The total percent change will be different for every property. For example, a residential property that lost 1% on its assessment since last year would see an increase to their taxes of 0.82%, whereas another residential property that only lost 0.5% on its assessment since last year would see an increase of 1.32% in their taxes. Notices will be printed and mailed out by mid-May 2019, and taxes are due on June 30th. Council, the options are the council grant bylaw 06219, the property tax mill rate and taxable assessment bylaw, the second and third readings. This will allow administration to begin the levy process and get tax notices generated and delivered to the printer to ensure notices are mailed in a timely manner. Or that council not grant the second and third readings to bylaw 6-2019 and the property tax mill rate and taxable assessment bylaw. This would allow administration to bring back more information to council but would delay the mailing of tax notices to the property owners. Notices are required to be mailed by May 30th, at the latest, to meet the requirements of the Lloydminster Charter. Council is required annually to pass a property tax bylaw under section 302 and 319 of the Lloydminster Charter to set mill rates. The 2019 budget identified the required municipal levy revenue to balance the budget. The mill rates calculated in the bylaw will generate $36 million in municipal levy approved by budget. If council does approve those rates today, it is hoped that the notices will be delivered by Thursday and mailed by the 17th, which allows residents 6 weeks, which is 2 more weeks than legislatively required. Back to you, Your Worship.
Thank you, City Clerk. Questions, comments? Councilor Torres.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just have a question on the table that we're looking at in terms of the 2019 final proposed and the original proposed. I'm just curious, and maybe it's just not understanding how the process works, is why the non-residential mill rate moves because of the change in assessments, but the residential mill rate doesn't change at all. Like, assumption is because it was commercial properties or something along those lines where the assessment changed, but I don't know that.
Thank you, Councilor Torres. The main reason there was a majority of it was non-residential changes. However, the $88,000 that council approved last year through the CFO, last week or 2 weeks ago, I guess, and the CFO was taken from non-residential levy requirement as well. So all that went towards the non-res side. So it was to kind of shift the burden a little bit. So we're still at 1.8%, but it was taken away from there.
Okay, so the 1.8 mill rate factor is the same?
Yes.
Even though one moves slightly more than the other?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Additional questions? Councilor Fletcher.
Just a quick question, I guess. And one of the things that I remember hearing when we came to council is the percentage of revenues that we rely upon from local taxation of our budget seems to be getting a little higher each year as the government is offloading and downloading on municipalities. So what percentage right now of our budget do we rely upon from grants federally, provincially versus our taxation?
Do you know that?
I don't know whether any other councilors just get rid of that.
Did you know that?
I don't know if I know that number off by heart. part, but I certainly can calculate it and give it back to you.
Yeah, because I guess it's seeing in this context where, I mean, the taxes are relatively flat in terms of changes, and yet I think what we're seeing is a continuing offload of expenses from, and a reduction of support from the federal and provincial governments relative to some of the grant structures we've seen. And I know that we had our initial session with female counselor who was an attorney, and there was an article, it was from Municipal World, that talked about the percentage of taxes or revenue that we get from the government, whereas I think internationally in other places they get over 50% of the revenues from government supports, whereas we get substantially less than that. So I guess I'm just looking at that as well in this context where we see that all these, we're just one small piece of the puzzle relative to the kind of supports we have from the province and from the feds relative to the kind of programs we have as well.
Yeah, this would be a fairly educated guess, but I think our total budget was around the 80 million roughly, and so we're talking 36 million here, so just under 50%. Okay, around there, so between 40 and 50.
I think that would be close to that as well.
Yeah, I would be, imagine 45 would be a fairly close percentage of the total spend for the city comes from taxpayers, and the remainder comes from grants and additional revenues through user fees and things like that. But the bulk of it is well over 90% of this from grants from the provincial governments and from the federal government, being the federal gas tax refund and things like that.
I guess I remember hearing in the presentations that our share, the local share and other countries and communities is substantially lower with the higher support from the provinces and federal governments.
You've hit a good point there, Councillor. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Baker.
Excuse me, Your Worship. If I may, I just want to say that we probably went through this exercise more this year than we have for many, many years, in detail. And I really wanted to say that I really appreciate the input from our taxation department and certainly our city manager, getting council members much more, or way better informed about the end results. Ultimately, we all have to answer to the public, and if you don't have the information, it's pretty hard to deal with. And I just want to salute them for getting all of that, doing that. And I hope you continue that tradition, Scott, on for the next whatever, and make sure that your predecessors do the same thing. And I think that the one major improvement is the identification when there is a reasonable change within a property, is the move towards having it identified up front, like new construction, addition, tear down, whatever it is. And I'll tell you that if you don't appreciate that now, I tell you in 3 more years you'll really appreciate it. When you can answer enough questions that you can't answer. How's that for a statement? But thank you very much, and I think that's worth marking in your book because it's certainly a move in the right direction. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Baker. I think I too, I think council as a whole, we've now received a whole bunch more information from when we started this process in 2016, and it was all new other than yourself to this council table. And I think the information that's transferred from administration to council, we try to provide the public with as much information. I think it's a learning process for all of us. We go through this year after year, but it always seems that we have to re-educate because it's that one time that taxpayers feel the municipality more than any because it shows up in the form of a bill. So, good point taken. Councilor Morrison.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just one more question, just around some of the percentages that we're showing in terms of total residential mill rate and non-residential mill rate. Does that include both the education and the municipal portion when we say 1.82%? Is that the two netted?
That would be just the municipal portion.
Just the municipal portion is 1.82% on residential and then 3.29 on non-residential. Okay, thank you.
I just gotta wait for such a review.
Okay, I'll make sure.
Because we've done it both ways. So.
Right.
Yeah, I think it actually includes both. Yeah.
So, do you know what the amount is, just the municipal portion on its own?
Municipal portion, well, this is from the last presentation, so it'll be fairly close. It's municipal tax increase for residential is 0.2345 mils, which will be about 1.8%. So it's pretty close to the same. It's the residential education actually went down, right? And
Right.
non-res went up.
Yeah, and I kind of just wanted to acknowledge that because I think it's important as we do this, you know, year after year, there's always a lot of people that don't understand on the property tax bill. There's an education portion that's set by the province, and then there is the municipal portion that's set by us through our budget annually. And I was even thinking, you know, maybe you were going to tell me a higher percentage just in the back of my mind because that was netted, but 1.82, you know, that's a good number to hang our hat on at the end of the day, considering some of the things we had to add into our budget this year. Just try and start moving in that direction of raising a little bit more fees for some of the things coming down the pipe. But regardless, I just think that, you know, it's important that people understand that, you know, as property values decrease, that actually creates a scenario where the mill rate may have to increase by a larger percentage, which is usually the number that people get hung up on, is the percentage increase on the mill rate. But at the end of the day, and I said this at the last meeting, but it really matters as far as what the city is setting in terms of a budget for what it needs for property taxes. And the rest that happens with the mill rate and what the percentage increase in that is just a function of math as you distribute the pieces of the pie using the assessment values of individual properties.
That's correct.
We did, so did we confirm that 1.82 and 3.29 is roughly the percentage of just the municipal portion?
That's,
I have,
do you have that?
I have the numbers here.
I thought I wrote it down here.
Okay,
I can't see
thank
that.
you.
Do you have it?
Yeah, the municipal increase is 1.82% and the non-residential is 3.29.
I think you hit a very good point, Councillor. And we've heard discussions with people in the media as well as in other format areas of discussion, how people don't often understand the mill rate. The mill rate will be a reflection of the assessment and the total costs of operating the city. And maybe we do it backwards. We start with the budget. We know how much money we determine we're going to spend. Once the assessment has been done, which is at arm's length, if I can use that term, because it is going to be going towards a city employee, but someone that's job is to determine the assessment, then we get to the mill rate. The mill rate can go up and down, and people have often asked, well, when is the mill rate going to go down? When our assessments go up. And it's a mathematical function. I think people have to realize because the mill rate will go down sometime, because that'll depend on the economic conditions in our city. Your property goes up that much more in value. So if your property doubles in value, your mill rate likely would come down in half, but you'll still pay the same property tax at the end of the day. I think that's the difficult part for people is they're looking at their tax bill and how do we decrease the tax bill? Well, we'll continue to work at that as best as we can. But as we know, we haven't found a simple solution. We haven't found a money tree for the city that brings in additional revenue. Because without the taxpayer, first of all, and that's the taxpayer paid to the city, followed by the provincial federal taxpayer, which is the same taxpayer in our city, we wouldn't be able to operate the city. It's that simple. The money doesn't grow on a tree. It's not that, we can't get any simpler than that, I believe, from the perspective that mill rates are a function of the process. And I hope people, as we continue to have that conversation, there's a step that happens. We do this every year. We'll continue to do it as this council and the councils afterwards. And it's happened each and every year. And again, the chart has shown they have gone down, they go up based on the assessment of the property and what the city requires to operate. Councilor Morrison.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just one more question, and this is just around the education portion. As we received Saskatchewan's numbers, but because of the Alberta election, we haven't got anything for Alberta. So I was just wondering if we could kind of confirm the process of what that looks like, at least so the public understands, because there is a bit of, chance that we could be giving them some kind of warning that if we use the same number as this year and then the province ends up changing it, you know, in a few months after we've already done this, that come next year, we may have to do a kind of a correction for whatever we have to do.
So the process typically for us on education is that the province of Alberta sets the rates. We would take that, do our localized education rate, and send it to the province of Saskatchewan for approval and order of council through their government. This year, because of the election, we were advised by the province of Alberta to use last year's rates and apply them to our 2019 equalized assessments to come up with our localized education rate, which is what we've done, and we've sent it to Saskatchewan government for approval. They've given us approval of those rates. So the difference being this year is that if the education rate changes for the province of Alberta, either plus or minus, we would have to do an either over or under leverage next year. So we would look at what we should have collected for Alberta. If we collected more, we would take it away from the education next year. If we didn't collect enough, we would have to add that to our education rate for next year.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, my only comment was I just wanted to thank Scott and his team for all their hard work, and finance, of course, for all their hard work. Scott and his team did a fantastic job putting some information together, so thank you, Scott, and to your team.
Indeed, thank you very much.
Thanks, Scott.
I'll look for direction from council on bylaw 6, regarding bylaw 06-2019.
All right, the council grant bylaw number 06-2019, the property tax mill rate, taxable assessment bylaw, second reading.
Seconder, Councilor Thorson. Any further questions? Not seeing any, I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councilor
Move that council grant bylaw number 2, number 06-2019, the property tax mill rate, taxable assessment bylaw, third reading.
Seconder, Councilor Thorson. Any further discussion? Not seeing any, I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving on to agenda item number 6.5, Community Development Services. City Manager.
Thank you, Your Worship, to present 6.5.1, 2019 Lloydminster Tobacco Reduction Grant Allocations. I'll ask Patrick Lancaster to come forward.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good afternoon, Council.
Good afternoon, Patrick.
So I'm here today to speak about the 2019 Lloydminster Tobacco Reduction Grant allocations. We have had $27,600 collected under the business license bylaw provision for tobacco retailers and flavored tobacco, whereas the city collects a portion of funding, $750 for tobacco retailers and an additional $350 from tobacco providers that are selling flavored tobacco. Under the business license bylaw, this could be businesses that are selling tobacco, e-cigarettes, pipes, and various other items used for the consumption of tobacco products and for smoking. The intent, under the bylaw, the funds are to be collected and distributed to initiatives in the community that promote the reduction of tobacco use and healthy living. So we received, as I said, $27,600 for that, and put out a call for applications in the community for nonprofit organizations to submit proposals for programs that they might run. This year we received 4 applications totaling $35,905 from different groups. 2 of those applications were for programs that had been funded in the previous year. Behind the Smoke, Lighting Up Cooking Skills from the Lloydminster Sexual Assault Center, which is a series of school sessions targeted at grades 8, 9, and 10, and provides students with education around how tobacco is often used as a coping mechanism, and they provide presentations that talk about some alternatives to using tobacco as a coping mechanism and some other options for students in reducing stress and coping with with their situations. Another repeat application was the Lloydminster Interval Home Society's 11 by 11 program, which is an awareness campaign developed by their clients at the Interval Society shelter and at the Lloydminster Community Youth Center. So youth and clients were surveyed, and the youth were heavily involved in developing a series of YouTube videos and promotions around the risks associated with tobacco consumption and in promoting healthy lifestyles. New applications that we received this year were from the Lloydminster Area Drug Strategy, making a pact, which is training, cessation training for staff that are working within the different educational institutions within Lloydminster, so from Lakeland, from the public and Catholic school divisions. And the intent of this program is to create some additional cessation counseling opportunities, specifically ones that are trained and able to target youth. The other program put forward by the Lloydminster Area Drug Strategy is Vaping Is It Really?, which is a school-based education and public awareness program focusing on the risks associated with tobacco use and vaping. So, while there were more requests for funding than our current pool of funding that was available, after reviewing and scoring the applications, the advisory committee, and this is different than the FCSS advisory committee. This is an internal committee of 3 city staff from the social program and services department and from the finance department. Our little committee made some recommendations around the allocations, which included essentially full funding for all the projects listed, with exception of the Lloydminster Interval Home Society project. In that case, we made a similar recommendation to the funding that was received the previous year. And we did take some time to reach out to the Lloydminster Interval Home Society, and our conversation with them is, if approved for that amount of funding, they would be able to run their program again, similar as they did the previous year. It's just some scaling in the scope of the project that would be affected. So our recommendations from the committee are to provide $3,175 for the Making a Pact program, $5,730 for Behind the Smoke, $11,695 for Loving My Lungs, and $7,000 for Vaping Is It Really? Are there any questions?
Thank you, Patrick. Questions?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just given that some of these are ones that we've seen last year as well, have you gotten any kind of level of feedback of the programs from last year to see how well they were taken, and what did they have any of the desired effects, anything like that?
So for this presentation, I did include the Tobacco Reduction Grants 2018 summary report, which provides some information about the programs that ran in the previous, or actually all the programs that ran in the previous cycle. All 4 funded programs, all 3 funded programs last cycle met the financial obligations that were set before them for their reporting. And then as far as outcomes, we got some positive feedback in the surveys from the Behind the Smoke program, where they had presentations in the schools, and there was some good feedback from teachers and students, and they were able to actually reach 331 youth grades 7 to 12. With the Loving My Lungs program, there were several youth involved in that, and that was a series. They developed a series of YouTube spots, which had gone out, and at the time of the report, they had about 547 views on YouTube, and they also ran a series on Newcat or Stingray TV, which, while it's hard to say exactly how many views they got off of there, their projected audience is about 1,200 audience members.
I can stop you. I clearly missed where it said 2018 when I read this report. I thought that was descriptions of what was going to happen on several of these, but I clearly missed that when I was reading it.
Councilor Baker, go ahead.
Your worship, when this program started, I had some concerns about taxing a certain element within the community for selling a legal product. And certainly I'm opposed to smoking. 35 years ago I smoked and I quit, thank God. And I hope we all do. But when I look at the numbers and the amount of money and how many people we're serving, and I'm not questioning anything that's happened. I just think that where is the root of the problem starts with the kids in school, the young kids. And $7,000 isn't a ton of money if in fact you're paying people to do this. And that's just something that I don't question the area drug strategy team either, but how much of this is being taught in the school, really? Because we got a lot of schools and a lot of kids. And they can ask Councilor Michael, I don't know, what do we got, 2,000 kids going to school? 4,000?
4,000, 4,100.
4,000 kids? To me, that is somewhere where we're really getting to the core of it. And I don't know how it's presented, if it's down and dirty. But it should be. Don't pull the punches. To me, it's what it is. And I don't know how it's presented, but in the future, we might look at what we're really doing with the schools, because I believe that it all starts with the kids. And I'm sure Councilor Michael could expand on that, but we've got 4,000 children out there from 6 to 18. We should really focus big time on that area, along with, for example, your policing initiative and other things. And nothing wrong with this, but I just think that that would be very important to do that. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilor Buckingham.
Thank you, Worship. Just while we're talking about it, I think it's probably worth bringing up, questioning. Do we expect an increase in this number next year to reach more people? The reason I ask is because, of course, we're now into a year with cannabis legalization, and those shops, we seem to have a large number of vaping shops and those types of things opening up around as well. And those all qualify or are taxed, if you want to call it that, this fee, correct?
I don't believe, I might have to defer. Elsewhere, that this fee includes the cannabis piece.
I'd have to confirm that we included the cannabis and don't have that right on the, if you did, if you, that's all.
Your Worship, I think relative to cannabis, the discussion is more on the business licensing costs that are affiliated with it. And I think that's where if there's any money coming out of that, we're going to be set aside for. We talked about, action strategy within the city. I think combined with that as well as some of the dollars coming from the tobacco as well. I don't believe there's any extra fees other than the business license that comes from the cannabis shops, because they don't smoke tobacco. So.
Yeah, I wanted to bring it up because it does, reference e-cigarettes and all that kind of stuff in this. And so I would think that we have more of those places than we had a year ago. So potentially we have more income in this fund for next year to reach more people, like Councilor Baker was saying.
I think that, good point, Councilor, but I had that same comment, but I think we're going to have that discussion with the legislative services, because there are specific shops that I believe that are handling items that may not fall under tobacco, under the actual description. But a vape shop, that's the one area I've heard more and more from the schools, and the concerns is the vaping that's going on has become much more acceptable than tobacco use, even though the vaping is as harmful or more harmful, because you don't know what's actually in the vape. And that's the concern the school boards have expressed to me, and certainly they're looking for direction from the city to try and help to encourage the non-use of those products, because we're not gaining, is what the school board is telling me. I haven't had that directly from health, but I'm pretty sure they're going to say the same thing. By vaping and not smoking, it hasn't changed the situation. So as fast as we've tried to deal with one issue, as you've said, Councilor Baker, and you've been here to see this from the beginning, that maybe we have to adjust them on the fly accordingly, because we may need to take another look at what's being sold, how is it being sold, and how are we trying to help lessen the public health impact, because it's a public health impact. That's what it is. Councilor Dychuk.
Yeah, so I want to correct the number, because it's 4,100 in the public school system, so it's probably at least another 2,000, 2,500 within the Lloyd Roman Catholic School as well. So it's well over 6,000 students we have in the community. I think there's a bit of a cautionary note that I would want to add here, is that I think a lot of times people see that the solution is going into the schools, and I can tell you they're inundated with virtually every problem that exists in the world, and everybody sees the school as a place to solve it. And it's a very busy place that has a full load as it is now. I think what we're seeing within health curriculum that has been updated several times now over the years, the focus on healthy living, healthy eating, healthy lifestyles, physical fitness, nutrition, all those pieces are in there. And I think one of the pieces that unfortunately we don't get to teach when students are at school are the parents. And my experience over the years in having to deal often with sort of the fallout, if you like, where students are apprehended because they're smoking in places and they're smoking things that are inappropriate, we're reminded by the parents to mind their own business in very frank language. And so I think, there are issues here that go beyond what we're capable of minding. And we have a formal trustee who's in the audience here this evening, and we had a discussion at Bar Colony School one day when a parent asked the school what they're going to do about cell phones, and went on for about a 5-10 minute sort of speech. And the trustee at the time said, hold on a second, who bought the phones? Dad says, I did. Whose child is this? Mine. And so whose phones are those? Well, basically ours. Well, then it's your problem. You sell them. You bought the phone, you deal with it, figure the phone out, because it's easy for us to say no phones, but if you're giving it to them and saying take it and use it, and similarly with cigarettes, kids are mainly given cigarettes. Kids can be in possession of cigarettes at any age, but they can't purchase it. So the law structure, even the way it is now, really gets in the way of actually making some changes. I think what I sort of to circle back to this that I think is important to note is when you're engaging students at particular ages in these projects where they come up with ideas of how to intervene and persuade other students in the language and from where they're at, that has more impact than any advertising we put out there. I mean, now we see the cigarette packages are basically going to be playing with pictures of organs that are diseased and from cancer. So I mean, these are pretty dramatic kind of influences to make change. And yet, I think the reality is we need to understand that smoking is an addiction. And addiction is a pretty powerful thing when you have to deal with it. But when you have students in this context that are creating projects for students their age, I think, the connections that are made there than anywhere else relative to that process. So.
Thank you, Councillor. I think the clerk had some comments that you shared with us.
Absolutely, yes. We did a quick rush here to look in the cannabis retail store. In addition to the square footage, pays a $1,500 licensing fee. But if council recalls, they enacted a policy in regards to that fee, in which that initial cost of that fee was sent to offset the cost of enforcement or the purchase of equipment first before it moved off to the educational piece.
Thank you, City Clerk. Councillor?
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, I wanted to bring it up because we talk about fairness and transparency and everything else, and this council does a really good job of it. My question still remains, does that policy cover vape shops and that? Because to me, there's not a huge difference between one or the other. And why is one business having to pay the fee and the other isn't when they're virtually providing the same product? So I don't know if we have the answer to that question and if that fee can get put into this fund to increase it, but it's something I'd certainly like to find out.
I think that's one we can send to administration for further investigation on that around tobacco policy.
Quick comment on that, I believe that when we did discuss it previously, it was because then we don't put any extra tax on liquor stores, so then we came into this whole thing, so how can we actually have a limitation? And I think that's why, if I recall, because then we would have to really make a broad spectrum. During our discussions, I think that's why it wasn't added originally.
City Clerk.
So in the definition by line of business that keeps for sale, sells, exposes, or offers for sale any smoking products to Devices intended to use tobacco or tobacco products including but not limited to cigars, cigarettes, tobacco, snuff, pipe, hookah, or electronic cigarettes.
Okay.
That's a tobacco retail.
So a vape is an electronic cigarette as far as I believe. Councilor Thorson.
On top of that, if I remember correctly, they actually sell flavored tobacco, so they pay a premium on top of that of an extra $350.
You are correct, Council.
Yeah, so-
Good discussion.
So circling back to my point, I think we're going to have a bigger pot of money a year from now than we have today.
And that will certainly be able to assist the programming that's being proposed that continues on the course. And I think that, Councilor Baker, you alluded to the education of the students. I think that's very important. I was going to point out, Patrick mentioned in the report that's attached, I think signage was the first step. It's simply just a direct visual. That was one project from last year that didn't get it. That I think every park, school, public park now has a sign at every entrance outlining that it's a tobacco-free zone and things like that. So I think that the messaging is there. That one's a continuous message, the work that's going to be done by the students and peer pressure. I think we're going in the right direction. The challenge is, as you said, Councillor, there's more work to be done. And I don't know if we'll get it all done in 1 year, but I think that as the projects continue to move forward, and as Councillor Diachak outlined, if students can get engaged and say this is wrong and this isn't good for you, and peer pressure does have, we know it works both ways, so hopefully possibly peer pressure will help alleviate some of the challenges that we face. I know it's not going to go away, it's like anything else, and the more we can do to carry it forward, I think that's the positive message for the community. Any other comments or questions? Not seeing any. I will look for direction on 6.5.1. Councilor Monroe.
Then council approved grant allocations for the 2019 Woodminster Tobacco Reduction Grant as follows. The Woodminster Area Drug Strategy, Making Impact, $3,175. Woodminster Sexual Assault and Information Center, Behind the Smoke, Lighting Up Coping Skills, $5,730. Woodminster Integral Home Society, Loving My Lungs, $11,695. Woodminster Area Drug Strategy, Vaping, Is It Really? $7,000.
Thank you, Councilor. Seconder. Councilor Diachak. Any further discussion or comments? Not seeing any, I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Patrick. Moving on to 6.6.
Thank you, Worship, to present 6.6.1 Dust Control Winter Sanding Program. I'll call forward Dave Henning.
Good afternoon, Worship, Council.
Good afternoon, Dave.
So this is a dust control winter sanding tender contract awarded, request for decision. Recommendation that Council approve the award for the 2019 to 2021 dust control winter sanding program to NSC Minerals Limited for an estimated yearly cost of $82,294.50 for 2019, estimated yearly cost of $86,403 for 2020, and an estimated yearly cost of $90,511.50 for 2021, plus applicable taxes, and the mayor and city clerk be authorized to sign and seal all necessary documents. The City of Woodminster requires a formal agreement to be in place for the dust control program and the calcium supply for the winter sanding program. The City of Woodminster is securing contract services for dust control and calcium supply. Recently, administration conducted an open bidding system for the dust control program and calcium supply for the winter sanding program. The request for proposal was issued on April 2nd with a closing date of April 18th. The RFP invited companies interested to submit a proposal to secure contract services for 2 years. The contractor shall provide trucks to haul, deliver, and apply liquid calcium chloride to various gravel roadways within the City of Woodminster and the administration, as well as delivering to the storage tanks during the winter months. The contractor shall be responsible for the quality control of the product supplied, as well as the final gravel roadway surface treatment. A thorough analysis of the proposals was conducted to ensure the proponent with the best understanding of the requirements outlined in the RFP was selected. There were 4 respondents to the RFP, and all 4 were chosen for the evaluation. The evaluation criteria weighted are noted in Table 1. And the total submission scoring results are indicated in Table 2. As a result of the evaluation process, NSC Minerals Limited has the highest score and is considered to be the best qualified to fulfill the requirements outlined in the RFP. Options: council approve the award for the 2019 to 2021 dust control winter sanding program to NSC Minerals Limited for an estimated yearly cost of $82,294.50 for 2019, estimated yearly cost of $86,403 for 2020, and an estimated yearly cost of $90,511.50 for 2021, plus deductible taxes, and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to sign and seal all necessary documents. Second option, the council not approve the award for dust control and maintenance program to NSC Minerals. Third, council direct administration to gather more information to be presented at the next council meeting. Budget financial implications. The dust control program and calcium supply for the winter maintenance program is part of the gravel surface maintenance and the winter maintenance budget and does not exceed the allocated funds. Administration shall have access at any time to all parts of the calcium chloride for checking analysis and other tests. Tests may be taken at administration's discretion at no expense to the contractor to check compliance with specifications and determine that the accessibility of the calcium chloride supply. Copies of the test will be made available to the contractor. Also, they submitted tests for the RFP.
Thank you, Dave. Questions or comments? Councilor Mitchell.
Thanks, Dave. I was going to call you Super Dave as you walk in. So quick question on the winter sanding program. So do they use our vehicles, their own vehicles? Because I remember our own vehicles with the Lloyd logo on them, sanding some of the streets. So would this be that, or what would it be?
What we have is we have 4 1,250-gallon storage tanks at
Okay.
the op center, and we put calcium on our trucks, and it's applied to the sand at the spinner.
Okay.
So they have to come and fill the tanks for us.
Oh, okay.
And what we do in the summertime is we'll also have calcium in the tanks in case the company can't come and do some gravel roads if they do get dusty on us. A product that we had looked at before doesn't allow us to store in the tanks because it'll mix with the calcium that we use in the wintertime. So that's why we went straight calcium. So.
Okay. Good. Thank you for that.
So Dave, sorry, go ahead, Councilor Baker.
Just a question, George. I don't have any question about the products because I don't want to go to start with. But I do notice when we look at the pricing, there's a 5%, and I think it's, looking at it compounded annually, 5% increase. You know, that's where we wonder where our mill rate goes, and is that a norm? That it goes up 5% every year?
Well, the other 3 companies that put in the proposals never did an increase, Mark. They just gave a flat rate over the 3 years. But on the table 2 is the total of the 3 years, and this company was still the lowest overall on 3 years. So the others didn't.
That's okay.
I have no reason why they.
The 5%, like it just keeps escalating, and you just say, if we had bid for 1 year, and we got this year's price, or next year's price, and how do you got, I know you got a ball up there. Would it be up 10% or would it be up 2%? Just a question.
That's a good question.
Food for thought is what it
Yeah,
is.
yeah, for sure.
Okay.
This is the only time out of all the contracts so far that I've seen do a 3-year like that.
To me, I've seen it happen where the first year they lowball it, and then they get a 3-year deal, and they pick it up in the second and third year. I'm not talking this, other things. So, yeah.
I appreciate that, Councilor, and thank you for taking that into account, Dave, because at the end of the day, it is a total package that you've compared to all three suppliers to from that perspective. I guess the question I had was slightly a little different from a dust control versus an oiling, if I can use that term, backouts. What kind of dollars and cents are we looking at for taxpayers if we were to say, you came back with a budget and said, rather than doing dust control this year, council, we'd like to oil those back alleys, not pave them, but oil them. And is that even a feasible discussion?
No, it's not. We used oil years ago, but yeah, that was taken up quite a while ago. So dust control, MG30, there is some other products out there that are a lot higher. At this point in time, this is the most economical for us. And some of our back lanes are in the best of shape, so we're doing the back lanes to try to harden the surface also, so it stays a little longer and control the vessel.
So that's a good option, but certainly that it is not one of those things you see that often, where people still revert back to it and say, well, they used to oil it. Why don't you oil it? It took care of the dust real well. It's just like why people didn't use it, but they're used oil back in the anymore either. It's not environmentally friendly.
Not anymore at all. No.
Not at all, so absolutely. Okay, I guess the one other question, because we now have the ability to store, it works both ways. If we graded the back alley and all of a sudden a thunderstorm comes between the time we get it all graded and prepped and the delivery truck comes, that product could be pumped into the tank and it's not an extra cost to us per se. We've got a storage ability with that pay.
Yes, that's correct. Actually, it's the same price pretty much put in their tanks as it put on the ground. And the reason a lot of these costs is estimated is once the product has been applied, if we do get a couple rains and we can grade it, it does revitalize it a bit. If we get a very, very dry summer, we could be putting more.
I think I haven't had too many complaints about dusty back alleys, so I think it must be succeeding fairly well in that department. So
We just started last year, actually. We had applied for it 2 years ago. The first year just didn't work out for us.
any other questions or comments? Not seeing any. I'll look for direction from council on 6.6.1. Thank you very much, Dave.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Councilor Buckingham.
The council approved the award for the 2019 to 2021 dust control winter sanding program to NSC Minerals Limited for an estimated yearly cost of $82,294.50 for 2019, an estimated yearly cost of $86,103 for 2020, an estimated yearly cost of $90,511.50 for 2021, plus applicable taxes, and the mayor and city clerk be authorized to sign and seal all necessary documents.
Second by Councilor Baker. Any further questions or comments? Not seeing any, I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving on to item number 7 on the agenda, correspondence or information.
Your worship, our CFO has an answer to Councilor Diak's question on the percentage of revenues. I'll just ask her to answer that.
All right, CFO.
I don't have the numbers for the 19 budget, but I went back to our financial statement for 18, and grants are 1% of our total revenue. So our total revenue in 18 was 91 million, and grants, just strictly grants, federal, provincial, and local transfers were 1%. So I went back to 17 and verified 17. 17 was 0.9%. And so to qualify that, it's difficult to measure it on a particular year, because if you do not spend it in that year because the project wasn't done, it might be put into deferred revenue. So we will go back and we'll do a graph for you that was similar to our financial statements, so that you can see 4 or 5 years and whether it's gone up and down as a percentage of total revenues.
Awesome. No, and there was an article I just pulled up as I was looking here, and it says that right now 60% of the infrastructure costs are supported basically, and in the responsibility, in the realm of responsibility of municipalities and cities. So 60% of the countries in Canada, infrastructure, the municipalities get 12 cents of every dollar of tax across the country. So when you add all the dollars that are being taxed, municipalities only get 12 cents on each dollar to support what they do. And then even when you look at how we spend our money, 80% goes on operations and all the other stuff that we do, and then 20% is allocated to infrastructure. So if you're taking 20% of your budget on infrastructure, and yet overall 60% of whatever's out there is that you're in your realm of responsibility, it's almost impossible to catch up without, getting external grants or else raising your taxes beyond belief kind of thing. So I remember that other number we got where it said that there are other parts of the world where there's a higher level of support externally, and so the taxes that you actually collect, within your own municipality are lowered on 25% or 20%, some substantially less amount than what we currently charge here. So I'm just trying to, because the point I know that we hear Councilor Baker reference over the years is that we continue to see, grants being reduced from the provincial level, stuff being downloaded to us, and then you're left holding the responsibility. And infrastructure is one of those big ones where I think we see across the country, this phenomenal infrastructure deficit. We have to replace all these old water pipes and sewer pipes. Otherwise, you have communities with lead poisoning or whatever else, other ailments you have in there. So it's this tension between, you know, what you're capable of doing, what you need to do, and trying to find a balance. I look forward to it. Thank you.
Senator Friday.
Sounds great. Thank you, Chief Financial Officer. I'll move on to Mayor and Council reports. I've got a few items that I'll bring to Council's attention. Last Wednesday, I had the opportunity to appear before the Senate hearing in Regina, Saskatchewan regarding the tanker ban known as Bill C-48 on the north coast of British Columbia. I attended and had an opportunity to present to the Senate committee, as well at the time when I spoke, the Mayor of Swift Current, Saskatchewan, the Mayor of Kindersley, Saskatchewan, and one of the town councillors from Kindersley also appeared at the same time. So we were given each 5 minutes to present. Councillor from Kindersley is an active oil company owner. He has a small oil resource company in Kindersley. So we had an opportunity to help provide some details to the Senate regarding the impacts of what Bill C-48 potentially will have if they cancel the ability to ever have tankers on the north side of British Columbia. Now, I will add this, that it's Canadian tankers and only Canadian oil. As most of you may be aware, the Alaska state government and Alaska produces a great deal of oil. It all is tankered out of Alaska down our west coast, just outside territorial waters of Canada, and reaches California and returns back as diesel fuel and gasoline, because Alaska is the one state that does not have a refinery. So all oil produced basically in Alaska goes out and then has to come back as a finished product. And we brought that to the attention of the Senate committee, saying, you know, it would be, if we're going to ban tankers, we're going to have to ban all tankers if we really want to protect that fishery. As well as it was highlighted in several presentations. And it was funny because I didn't speak to the mayors prior to my presentation, and they hadn't spoke to me, but we all had a very common interest, saying that why is there tanker bans in one part of Canada and none in the rest of Canada? Because to be fair, the salmon fishery is as important as the lobster fishery is in Nova Scotia, PEI, New Brunswick, the salmon fishery on the Atlantic side. So I hope we made our points, and I had the opportunity to spend a good portion of the day there hearing other presentations. In most cases, there was one opposed, or one supporting the tanker ban, and that was a representative from the Skeena First Nations Fishery Commission. But the remainder were business people, owners of businesses in Estevan, Weyburn, Saskatchewan, Swift Current. The executive director of the Chamber of Commerce in Regina spoke and talked about the impacts that oil and gas has in the province of Saskatchewan, the city of Regina. So it was a very informal day and informational for myself, and the opportunity to meet some senators. The one senator from British Columbia challenged myself, the Mayor of Swift Current, and the Mayor of Kindersley to consider going to Kitimat, British Columbia, and those places where this pipeline may end up someday if the Northern Gateway was to be completed, and help explain what a pipeline does. And, certainly I indicated, and I know the other two mayors did too, that we personally be prepared to travel on our own to go and speak to those communities, because those people know gasoline and diesel fuel, but they don't know crude oil like we do. And I think it's so important to share that message with people in our own country, and we'll continue to do that at FCM and other places. But I think that people that are affected by something new and exciting like a pipeline need to help understand that it has implications, but they can be very positive implications. We live with pipelines in this community every day. They run through the city, they run around the city, and they operate effectively, efficiently, and safely each and every day. So I think that's a message that I wanted to share. This morning I had the opportunity to spend a couple hours with our MLA-elect on the Alberta side, Garth Rosewell, and Garth and I had a very good discussion about the issues that this council faces, this community faces, and as you mentioned, Councilor Diachuk, he got it very quickly this morning about the 60% of the infrastructure. We toured our wastewater facility, we toured our water treatment facility, we toured our stormwater works. And he says, wow, you guys spend a lot of money. I says, we do, because that's what it takes to keep up with progress and where those dollars are spent. We discussed healthcare, education, and a few other numerous items in the community. So I'm looking forward to working with Mr. Rosewell as our new MLA, and I congratulate him on behalf of our city in his election. It'll be a change. He's stepping into a brand new role. Never elected before, but I think he's up for the challenge from that perspective. The other item I wanted to report to council is that I received a very interesting phone call this morning just before lunch from Minister Madhu the new municipal minister in Alberta. He called to let me know, and our council know, and our city, that they're there to work with us. And he's open, his phone and door are open at any time. If there's an issue that needs to come to his attention, and I just need to reach out. So I felt very honored and privileged to have that opportunity to chat with him this morning. I know he's a brand new MLA. He's the MLA that represents the one Edmonton riding that was elected to the government. But I've talked to other people that know him, and he is comes highly recommended. He's a lawyer, and he's a very strong statesman. So we look forward to that opportunity, look forward to the opportunity to get him out here, and I did make that invitation, and he said when there's an opportunity, he can certainly be looking forward to making that trip. So I look forward to hosting the Minister of Municipal Affairs the first opportunity. So that's my quick summary. Councilor Rutherford.
Thank you, Worship. I had the opportunity to attend a few events on behalf of the mayor this weekend. The first one being the MS Walk on Saturday morning. It was encouraging to see all the people out for that, over 200 participants strong. So it was a pleasure to be there. We bring greetings on behalf of council for that. Then I headed straight over to the Hazardous Waste Roundup and was absolutely blown away on a number of fronts. First of all, the lineup for people actually partaking in this function. It was unbelievable. Past the Civic Center and around behind it and all the way through the exhibition grounds, and that was right at 10 o'clock when it started up. So it was great to see the community taking advantage of the opportunity to properly dispose of those things. It was great to see the city staff out there doing a great job of handling that lineup, as well as numerous volunteers from the community that were out there, and a ton of youth that were out there to support that process. So just a hats off to everybody involved in that, because I guess I was very surprised at the lineup and how many people were actually out there. It wasn't what I was expecting driving up there, but I couldn't get down to 49th Ave. It was backed right up, so that was pretty good to see, and so thanks to everybody that had a part in that.
Any other
Yes, this is going forward. This Thursday, there's an event that's being co-hosted by the Thorpe Center and the Gold Horse Casino. Dinner, art showcasing, fashion show, and comedian. Proceeds go towards the local Thorpe Recovery Center. So it starts at 5:30. Many of the artists, in order to participate, they have to donate a piece of art. So their work will be there available for people who are interested in purchasing whatever, and certainly the revenues that are generated go towards supporting Thorpe Center. $75 a pop. So if you're interested, have some information.
And I believe Pechacucha 3.5 is scheduled for the Vic Juba Theater tomorrow night, if I'm correct, Councilor? Yes. Tomorrow night, it's I believe $10 at the door. Great opportunity to see youth present, and the terminology, Pechacucha is I wrote the article, just trying to remember exactly the English version of the Chinese word, but the bottom line is I've never seen people expose themselves as they do, and put themselves out in front of people and speak on their lives, experiences, challenges, opportunities. It's just incredible to watch those young people get up and speak. And I highly encourage anyone that has the time tomorrow night. It's the cost is minimal, I believe, and it's got just an impact beyond. Councilor Monroe, would you like to add anything to that?
Just like if you do have the chance, it's not anything that you would ever think that you're going to experience when you go there. It's actually quite moving. It pulls at your heartstrings, and you leave a little bit more inspired and motivated. So.
Thank you. Any other councilor reports? All right. Is there any other matters at this time this council needs to deal with? Not seeing any? I'll move to inquiries from the media.
Thank you, Your Worship. If you'd like to speak with yourself and ours, as well as Councilor Dadachuk and Councilor Bay.
Thank you. I will look to council for direction for recess. Councilor Bishop. Seconder. Councilor Buckingham, all in favor? Opposed? Carried.